When the 2008 financial crisis hit and millions lost their homes, Warren Buffett sat calmly in his office, sipping cherry Coke, and bought $5 billion worth of Goldman Sachs stock. While families wept over foreclosure notices, he saw opportunity. While politicians panicked on television, he remained stone-faced, calculating his next move. This isn't luck. This isn't privilege. This is the result of a psychological transformation that separates the ultra-wealthy from everyone else. The question isn't how they got rich. The question is how they rewired their brains to see chaos as a chessboard, not a catastrophe. Today, we're going to dissect the dark psychology behind this emotional detachment and why it might be the most powerful skill you never learned. Subscribe and comment your favorite topic below. Your engagement shapes what we explore next. Jeff Bezos once fired 18,000 employees in a single announcement. No trembling voice, no apology tours, just cold, calculated efficiency. While families across America processed the devastation of lost livelihoods, Bezos was already 3 moves ahead, restructuring Amazon for maximum profitability. This isn't cruelty, it's emotional architecture. Most people mistake this for heartlessness, but they're missing the deeper psychological mechanism at work. Billionaires don't lack emotions. They've rewired their relationship with them. They've discovered what Machiavelli knew centuries ago. Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved. The ultra-wealthy understand that emotional attachment is a liability in the game of power. When you care too much about individual outcomes, you lose sight of systemic opportunities. When you feel too deeply about short-term pain, you miss long-term gains. They've trained themselves to operate from what psychologists call emotional granularity, the ability to identify, understand, and compartmentalize feelings without being controlled by them. Consider how Mark Cuban processes failure. When his first company collapsed, most entrepreneurs would spiral into depression, self-doubt, and analysis paralysis. Cuban treated it like data. He dissected what went wrong with the same detachment a surgeon uses to examine a tumor. No shame, no regret. Just cold analysis leading to strategic recalibration. This emotional immunity isn't accidental. It's cultivated through what I call strategic desensitization. They expose themselves to high-stakes situations repeatedly until the physiological responses, elevated heart rate, sweaty palms, racing thoughts, become background noise. They've essentially hacked their nervous system to maintain clarity when everyone else is drowning in biochemical chaos. But here's where it gets darker. They don't just manage their own emotions, they weaponize everyone else's. While you're feeling fear, they're buying. While you're celebrating, they're selling. While you're paralyzed by uncertainty, they're moving with precision. Your emotional volatility becomes their strategic advantage. Warren Buffett has been called the Oracle of Omaha, but there's nothing mystical about his approach. He's simply mastered what Machiavelli described as the art of appearing virtuous while being ruthlessly practical. When Buffett speaks at shareholder meetings, he radiates grandfatherly warmth. Behind closed doors, he's calculating which companies to devour during their weakest moments. This is the billionaire's greatest trick. They haven't eliminated empathy. They've transformed it into an instrument. They can turn it on and off like a faucet, deploying it strategically to build trust, gather information, or manipulate outcomes. When they need to understand their target's psychology, they become deeply empathetic listeners. When they need to make decisions that crush dreams, they switch it off entirely. Elon Musk demonstrates this perfectly. One moment he's tweeting jokes and connecting with his audience on a human level. The next, he's laying off entire departments without blinking. The emotional whiplash confuses observers, but it's actually masterful psychological maneuvering. He maintains plausible deniability for his ruthlessness while building a cult of personality around his relatability. The key is understanding that for billionaires, empathy is contextual, not constant. They've learned to ask, will feeling this emotion right now help me achieve my objective? If the answer is yes, they feel it fully. If it's no, they suppress it completely. This isn't sociopathy, it's emotional efficiency. Most people are slaves to their feelings. They make decisions based on how they feel in the moment, not on what the situation requires. Billionaires have inverted this relationship. They decide what outcome they want, then reverse engineer the appropriate emotional state to achieve it. If they need to be charming, they become charming. If they need to be cold, they become ice. This emotional flexibility gives them an enormous advantage in negotiations. While their counterpart is struggling with guilt, fear, or excitement, the billionaire is operating from whatever emotional state serves their interests. They're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers with their feelings. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." This principle has become the foundational philosophy of modern wealth accumulation. The ultra-wealthy have discovered that emotional distance isn't just helpful, it's essential for seeing opportunities that emotional involvement would obscure. When Ray Dalio built Bridgewater Associates into the world's largest hedge fund, he institutionalized this principle through what he called radical transparency. But transparency wasn't about honesty. It was about creating emotional distance through systematic feedback. By turning human relationships into data points, he eliminated the emotional static that clouds judgment. The psychological mechanism behind this is profound. When you maintain emotional distance from outcomes, you can see patterns that emotional investment would hide. You can identify when markets are driven by irrational fear or greed because you're not participating in those emotions. You can spot when competitors are making emotion-based decisions because you're operating from pure logic. This detachment extends beyond business into every aspect of their lives. They view relationships, friendships, even family dynamics through the lens of strategic value. It sounds cold, but it's incredibly effective. They can maintain relationships that serve their interests while discarding ones that don't, without the emotional turmoil that would paralyze most people. The dark truth is that this emotional architecture creates a feedback loop of increasing power. The more emotionally detached they become, the clearer they think. The clearer they think, the better decisions they make. The better decisions they make, the more wealth they accumulate. The more wealth they accumulate, the more they can afford to be emotionally detached from outcomes. They've essentially discovered that feelings are a luxury they can't afford. Not because they lack resources, but because emotions are incompatible with the level of strategic thinking required to operate at their scale. While everyone else is feeling their way through decisions, they're calculating their way to dominance. When COVID-19 shut down the world in March 2020, small business owners were boarding up their shops and filing for bankruptcy. Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos added $13 billion to his net worth in a single day. While families quarantined in fear, he saw the largest acceleration of e-commerce adoption in human history. This isn't luck. It's a fundamentally different way of processing reality. Billionaires have mastered what philosophers call perspectivism, the understanding that reality is always filtered through interpretation. While most people see a crisis and ask, "How do I survive this?" billionaires ask, "How do I exploit this?" They've trained themselves to automatically reframe chaos as competitive advantage. The psychological mechanism is rooted in what Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, called the discipline of perception. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Billionaires have weaponized this ancient wisdom. They understand that the same event that destroys one person can enrich another, depending entirely on how it's interpreted. Consider how Michael Burry approached the 2008 housing crisis. While everyone else saw rising home prices as prosperity, he saw an unsustainable bubble. While others felt optimistic, he felt suspicious. While others invested more, he bet against the entire system. His emotional detachment allowed him to see what collective euphoria had hidden. When the crash came, his contrarian positioning made him hundreds of millions. This reframing ability isn't just intellectual, it's deeply psychological. Billionaires have conditioned themselves to feel excited by uncertainty, because they know uncertainty creates pricing inefficiencies. They've learned to interpret fear in the market as a buying signal, not a warning. They've rewired their brains to see panic as opportunity. But here's the darker aspect. They don't just benefit from chaos, they sometimes create it. They understand that emotional volatility in others is their competitive advantage. So they make moves that increase uncertainty, knowing that while others freeze in confusion, they'll move with clarity. They profit from the very instability that terrifies everyone else. The key insight is that billionaires have inverted their relationship with risk. Where most people see risk as something to avoid, they see it as something to harvest. Where others see chaos as dangerous, they see it as profitable. They've essentially turned the human survival instinct inside out, using it as a wealth generation mechanism. When Elon Musk was on the verge of bankruptcy with both Tesla and SpaceX simultaneously failing, he didn't panic. He slept on the factory floor, worked 120-hour weeks, and systematically solved one problem at a time. While investors fled and employees quit, he maintained the emotional stability of a chess grandmaster under pressure. This isn't natural resilience, it's cultivated stoicism. The ultra-wealthy have embraced the ancient Stoic principle that you can only control your responses, not your circumstances. Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Billionaires have turned this philosophical concept into a competitive weapon. While others waste energy on emotional reactions to uncontrollable events, they focus entirely on strategic responses. This emotional regulation gives them an enormous advantage during crisis. When everyone else is operating from fight or flight mode, their decision-making quality deteriorates. They make impulsive choices, sell assets at terrible prices, and abandon long-term strategies for short-term relief. Billionaires maintain access to their prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for strategic thinking, even under extreme pressure. Ray Dalio calls this ego barrier management. He's trained himself to separate his identity from his investments, his emotions from his analysis, his personal desires from market realities. When one of his positions loses billions, he doesn't take it personally. He treats it like weather, something that happens in the environment, not something that defines his worth. The psychological training is systematic. They expose themselves to controlled stress repeatedly until their nervous system stops overreacting to uncertainty. They practice making important decisions while uncomfortable, tired, or under pressure. They essentially build emotional calluses that protect them from the psychological wear and tear that breaks most people. But the real advantage isn't just emotional stability, it's strategic patience. While others rush to escape discomfort, billionaires can sit in uncertainty for years, waiting for the perfect moment to act. They can endure short-term pain for long-term gain because they have desensitized themselves to the psychological discomfort of delayed gratification. This creates what I call the Stoic paradox. By caring less about immediate outcomes, they achieve better long-term results. By accepting that they can't control everything, they gain more control over what matters. By embracing uncertainty, they become more certain in their decision-making. Warren Buffett once said, "Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful." This isn't just investment advice. It's a masterclass in pattern recognition during emotional chaos. While the crowd is driven by feelings, he's reading the underlying structure of human behavior. He's playing a different game entirely. Billionaires have developed what psychologists call cognitive flexibility, the ability to switch between different conceptual representations of the same situation. When everyone else sees a stock market crash, they see wealth transfer. When others see recession, they see consolidation opportunities. When others see crisis, they see market correction. They're essentially reading the same book in a different language. The key is understanding that human emotions follow predictable patterns, especially during stress. Fear leads to selling. Greed leads to buying. Uncertainty leads to paralysis. Once you map these emotional cycles, you can position yourself to benefit from each phase. Billionaires have become emotional meteorologists, predicting the psychological weather and positioning accordingly. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Since it is difficult to join them together, it is safer to be feared than to be loved when one of the two must be lacking. He wasn't just talking about political power. He was describing the fundamental asymmetry between those who understand human nature and those who are controlled by it. During the dot-com crash, while retail investors panic-sold their portfolios, Warren Buffett quietly accumulated shares of quality companies at discount prices. While others saw their 401ks evaporating, he saw the greatest buying opportunity of his lifetime. His emotional detachment allowed him to see the mathematical reality behind the emotional chaos. This pattern recognition extends beyond financial markets into every domain of human activity. They can predict when employees will quit, when competitors will make mistakes, when regulations will change, because they understand the emotional and psychological drivers behind these decisions. They're essentially trading on human predictability while remaining unpredictable themselves. The ultimate realization is that chaos isn't random, it's emotional. Markets don't crash due to mathematical formulas. They crash due to collective fear. Opportunities don't emerge from algorithmic calculations. They emerge from emotional mispricing. Billionaires have learned to read these emotional patterns like sheet music, playing along with the symphony of human psychology while everyone else is just making noise. They've discovered that the greatest competitive advantage isn't superior technology, better products, or more capital. It's superior emotional architecture. While everyone else is feeling their way through decisions, they're thinking their way to dominance. So here we are, staring into the psychological abyss that separates the ultra-wealthy from everyone else. It's not their bank accounts that make them different. It's their emotional architecture. They've discovered what most of us never will. That feelings, while human and natural, are incompatible with the kind of strategic thinking required to accumulate massive wealth and power. The uncomfortable reality is that they've essentially evolved beyond ordinary human emotional responses. They've created a psychological operating system that treats empathy as a tool, chaos as opportunity, and other people's emotions as competitive advantages. It's simultaneously impressive and terrifying. But here's what's even more disturbing. This isn't necessarily wrong. In a world where resources are finite and competition is brutal, emotional detachment might be the most rational response. They've simply accepted a truth that most of us refuse to acknowledge, that success often requires sacrificing parts of our humanity. The question you need to ask yourself isn't whether this is moral or immoral. The question is whether you're willing to make these psychological trades. Are you prepared to view relationships strategically? Can you train yourself to see opportunity in other people's suffering? Will you sacrifice emotional connection for strategic advantage? Most people can't and won't make these trades. They'll remain emotionally human, which means they'll remain financially ordinary. And perhaps that's exactly as it should be. Perhaps the price of becoming emotionally like a billionaire is losing what makes life worth living in the first place. The billionaires have won the game by changing the rules. They've redefined success, reframed reality, and rewired their brains for a kind of thinking that most of us would find psychologically unbearable. They've mastered the art of caring about results while remaining detached from the process. They've learned to love the game without loving the players. Whether you choose to follow this path or reject it entirely, at least now you understand the psychological machinery that drives the world's most successful people. You know why they can stay calm while you panic, why they profit from your fear, and why they seem to operate by completely different rules. The power is in the knowledge. What you do with it is up to you. If this psychological analysis opened your eyes to how the ultra-wealthy really think, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, are you willing to make these emotional trades for financial success? Or do you think the human cost is too high? And if you want to explore more dark truths about wealth, power, and human psychology, subscribe to the channel. Every week, we dive deeper into the psychological mechanisms that separate those who rule from those who are ruled. Hit that subscribe button, comment your favorite topic you'd like us to explore next, and remember, knowledge is power, but only if you're brave enough to use it.